So hello and welcome back to Living the Small Business Life. We're now into season 2, and for this season we decided that we would get some guests on who can also talk to us about what it's like to run their own small businesses. So today I'm joined by Emily and Nikki, who run More Driver Solutions. Emily, Nikki, welcome to the podcast.
Good morning.
So do you want to start off by just giving us a brief introduction to your business, and we'll go from there?
Sure.
Yep. So we are More Driver Solutions. We've actually got an overarching business now, the More Recruitment Group. So More Driver Solutions was established 2008 by Em and myself, recruiting lorry drivers. Oh, cool. So it's a real simple concept. People need a driver to cover holiday, sickness, or just a shortness of staff. We find the driver and we place them. Yeah. However, over the years, we've taken it a lot further, which I'm sure we'll discuss. And we've recently seen that there's a gap in the market for recruitment in terms of permanent placements in this industry. Yeah. And because of our network and because of the experience we've got, we've diversified. So we now have More Recruitment Group, which covers More Driver Solutions and More Recruitment Solutions. So perms in transport and logistics as well.
Cool. Excellent. And what sort of inspired you guys to start a business and specifically within that industry as well?
We both kind of fell into recruitment, to be honest. We fell into recruitment, then we fell into working together, and we loved it. We absolutely enjoyed it. We completely thrived on it. We worked for two separate places, but share it, like lending each other drivers. So it was almost like a bit of a partnership, but for two separate businesses. We ended up working together. We worked together for a couple of years and loved it, and really, really wanted to just go further. We had 3 offers on the table to set up a business. We chose one of them, and we've not really ever looked back. Yeah.
Did you have some investment then to you said you had 3 offers on the table?
It was a strange. We had a mixture. We had someone that basically offered to lend us a certain amount of money and we'd just pay it back to them. We had someone else that basically wanted we'd have 49%, they'd have 51%, and then we had someone else that the split was 25%, us each having 25%, him and his wife having 25% each. And he agreed. He basically offered us that he would cover our salaries for the first year, which was an incredible offer. Yeah. We paid him back very, very quickly. It didn't quite work out because it just didn't work out. Right. Okay. So we bought them out, paid them, a good amount of money to buy them out, and that was within the first not even 6 months we were buying them out. So.
Hurdle number 1.
So before we started recording, one of the things that you said was that you were actually also quite young when you set up your business. So and you were kind of talking about like having a plan or not having a plan. Do you think that helped when you were setting up, or?
Yeah, I do, because when you first set up a business, for us, we didn't have a plan, and things were so changeable that I think if we'd had a plan, it would have really rattled us, because we wouldn't have been able to follow that along, and we'd have been failing. Yeah. And then you'd been sort of digging back to try and get to where you were, whereas actually we were very reactive, and we had to deal with everything as it came along. Yeah. And I think that made it more robust almost, because it was like we learned to react to anything. And when you run a small business, anything can happen.
Anything can change.
Anything, and it can change in the drop of like that. Yeah. So and I think for us not having a plan in the first place and being young, I mean, our biggest plan was, well, we're young enough, so if this goes wrong and we go bankrupt, we'll be able to start again. It'll be fine.
Yeah. We had 2 houses at the time, and the real conversation was, well, we'll just sell yours if we've got a problem and live in mine. Live with Emily, because Em had a daughter. What was Holly? 4, 5?
Yeah.
So that was the very important thing, and she loved Auntie Nikki, so it wasn't a problem if we were all going to be stuck together. So that was a very real conversation.
Yeah. I love worst case scenario plans like that, because they sound like, as you describe it, they sound both incredibly crazy and completely rational at the same time. Yeah. Like worst case scenario plans just always come across like that, don't they?
Yeah. And we had very our targets for what we wanted to be able to achieve from the business originally were actually just really simple.
Just want to be able to shop in Waitrose.
First one was shop in Waitrose.
Life goals.
Yeah. And then the second one's to go to Selfridges and have a personal shopper. Yeah. We were talking maximum £5,000 goals in Selfridges,
Yeah.
but for us it was just absolutely huge for us to be able to go and do something that we don't like to do ourselves, that we could fund.
Yeah. Have you done both of those?
We
Benny,
have.
you could
We
also
have,
say
yeah.
Ben.
I need to set a new goal.
So starting out, you had some cash behind you. You had your first year's salaries covered.
Yes.
And then you had your backup plan, which was around, if this doesn't work and we
Yes.
need some more money, we've got a house to sell between us.
Yeah.
So
and
we
another house
found
to live in.
ourselves after 9 months sort of splitting with the business partners we'd gone into business with. We were sat, it ended quite abruptly, and we took the computers and we're sat in Emily's front room and we're a bit like, right, okay, what now? Because we wanted to keep the name. We'd already left another business and started this one. So we wanted to keep the name. So the only option was to buy them out. So actually, for the probably 15 months preceding that, or following that, first 15 months following that, we had to pay out the best part of, I don't know, $3,500, $4,000 a month to buy this business.
Right.
And it was almost like it was a salary that we were paying out that we didn't have.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So that was when the plan came in for the house.
Yeah.
And
you
you started in the front room, basically, is that?
Yeah. Well, we started in that office, and when we left, it was literally, it was a case of, okay, we can't work together. This isn't going to work. We're supposed to all be equal business partners, not having one boss, a boss that doesn't understand recruitment, a boss that's taking an equal share out, that wants to draw out the same amount. It was so complicated. And we were like, we can't do this. This isn't going to work now. So we need to cut ties.
Yeah.
And like Nick said, we wanted to do it fairly because we wanted to continue with the business. It doesn't look great, obviously, because we like to do things really, really well. We started in February 2008 and we had a recession.
Yeah.
So we started a business as the recession hit. And we didn't want our customers to think we were, I suppose flaky is the right word. You know, we'd left one company, started another. Then when things go wrong, we close and reopen. We just didn't want to start with a bad reputation in the first place. So we were like, we have to make this work this way to do it. So like Nikki said, we literally sat and went, how are we going to do this? Went in a tiny little office, didn't we? Just the two of us, because we needed somewhere to work and we didn't want drivers to be coming to our houses to interview them and that sort of stuff. So, and we were there for quite some time, but it was literally a case of we were paying someone more than we were paying ourselves to get rid of them.
Yeah.
So we couldn't employ anyone, we couldn't do it. It was literally just us.
Yeah.
So you had to make quite a big decision early on about going your own way.
Yeah, and doing it the right way.
Yeah, and was that
Even at
hard to
our
do?
cost.
Or, I mean, there was obviously lots of conversations and you got to build yourself up for saying that's what you want to do.
We were lucky. We found an accountant. We have been lucky with people supporting us, I think, like in terms of our parents. But this particular accountant, not financially, I mean, just in terms of go for it. If this is what you want to do, you two are capable.
Yeah.
But the accountant we found, he said to us, look, the business hasn't been going very long, but I'm going to value it 100 grand, offer him 50. And we were like, okay, we trust you, because Graham was probably late 50s.
Yeah.
It was a reputable business. My parents actually used the same accountancy firm back in Wiltshire, so it all kind of aligned, didn't it?
Yeah.
And he really looked after us. I remember the day that we signed it all over, he bought a bottle of champagne in for us as well, didn't he? And so we ran with it. There wasn't a lot of thinking about it because we were both unemployed.
Yeah.
So we had to just push on.
Yeah.
And it was we knew it was the right decision.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we couldn't stay in business with someone that our goals weren't aligned. We had completely different things in mind. He had another business that was running on the side that he worked on full time.
Yeah.
There was no way we could pay two salaries for two people that didn't work full time on the business and pay them the same amount as us. We didn't have the option to earn more money. So it was like, it's a now or never.
Yeah.
If we don't buy them out now, or them out now, then we will never be able to buy them out because it will just be this consistent pattern and the business will be worth more. So it was the risk we needed to take.
And that was the same pattern when we left employment. Like we were, say, 22, 23, and we know we were young, but we were earning very good money. And we said to each other, if we don't do it now with all these offers on the table, we're going to struggle in 5 years' time, you know, because of the commitment.
Yeah. So do you feel like once you then owned the business, just the two of you, was that kind of a new start, or how did it kind of go after that?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was like, right, now we're going, now we know what we're doing, now we can go in the same direction. For a long time it was sleepless nights, wondering, you know, this money, it was like, we need to have this money every single month, and we know if we don't pay that money, then he's going to push financially or legally to get that money. There's not going to be a case of, I'll let you pay less this month. We had to have that money. regardless of anything else, that was
That was our focus, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was many a sleepless night over that.
Yeah.
Must have been very freeing to get over that.
It
It was
amazing.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But actually, we'd started paying him a month early, so there was a bit of a scenario where we have a certain type of finance to run our business. It's close invoice discounting, so we sort of draw down against the invoices. And the first one we all had, like, I can't remember, it was joint and several. And somehow he managed to get himself off of this, but he wasn't supposed to do that until we paid him all the money, because obviously if he then pushed us to go under, it would affect him. And we were thinking, oh, we've not got the money this month. I can't remember whether we had a VAT, but we changed from cash accounting to accrual, or whichever way round it is, and we weren't expecting that, so that was a massive VAT bill that we weren't expecting. All these things that you don't realise are going to happen.
Yeah, until they happen.
Yeah.
HMRC, not your friends. They don't want to help you out. That. We were obviously incredibly nervous. We'd never had any dealings with them, so we're like, oh, we've got this VAT bill. We've also got to pay, and all this is going on. And then he takes himself off the guarantor. And we're like, oh my goodness, now what we're going to do?
Tries to call in the whole debt.
Tries to call in the whole debt, and then we look back through it, and we'd started paying a month early.
So we were ahead of schedule.
So that was,
Yeah.
And those are the things that you kind of don't ever think you're going to go through.
No, you've got the VAT man on the phone saying, we're like, can we pay you in 3 instalments? And he's like, can't you just put it on a credit card? Like, who has 60 grand's worth of credit card? Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
They were the actual words that came out of their mouth, weren't they?
I mean, I don't know who has a 60 grand credit card, but
No.
if I did, I wouldn't need to run
I was going to say, business or personal. That's kind of crazy.
So in terms of your industry, I presume it's quite competitive, is it? I mean, and how do you sort of stay ahead of the competition?
I'd say it's competitive because it's pretty unregulated. Would you? Do you think that's the reason why there's a lot of competition? People can start up reasonably easily?
Yes, I completely
Although I
agree.
don't know how they still can, because I think that would be the biggest fear for us. Everything we've learned has been put into place over the years. The thought of trying to start that now from scratch and do it properly is almost impossible, but people still do. So where we've got our edge is that we do it all right, we do it well. So we make sure in terms of the driving side, the drivers are very compliant. Rather than them just being a temp bum on a seat, they are our drivers, our team, so they're part of Team MDS. Right. They're uniformed. We see them all before we put them out on the road. We don't just follow this online format where you can register online and then you're crossing your fingers that the driver's actually the one that's done his knowledge test and you're speaking to him on the phone, etc. So we put a lot of work in front end to look after and manage our drivers, and it comes through.
Yeah, and I would say we also put a lot of work in back end of it as well. All of that is done correctly. We're audited by our bank. We're audited by Logistics UK. Everything we do is to tick the boxes of compliance. All our payroll is done in-house, so that we know it's done properly. We have very limited payroll queries, but it's because it's all done by our team. We don't outsource anything. And I think that makes a huge, huge difference. We are compliant, whereas anyone can set up a driving agency. Like Nikki said, they can register them online. They can outsource all of their payroll, so they do nothing. They have no financial risk, really, because someone else is doing all of that for them. They're chasing the debt. They're making the payments. They just get what's left at the end of that. And so we do all of that.
Yeah. When we say we don't outsource, we outsource the bits that are non-recruitment, the bits that we aren't experts in, but the whole recruitment process from start to finish and the payroll. So basically a massive payroll company. So we keep all of that very close.
Yeah.
And then we outsource the bits that we don't know about and don't have the time to go and learn, or just wouldn't be our expertise.
No, we take advice from industry experts, from tax experts, from our accountants, because they're the ones that are knowledgeable, and that's something we've learned more recently. You can't do everything and do it well. Yeah. For a long time, we did everything probably not so well, and the more we've grown, we know that there's absolutely pointless us spending hours doing bank reconciliations. Yeah. That's not our bag. Yeah. And actually, it was so not our bag that we're doing them manually, and there's no level of importing, or the payments weren't exported or imported. So we then find an accountant you trust. All these new things we implemented, which save us time. That's not for us to know and to understand, because you genuinely can't be good at everything, and there's so many different aspects to running a business.
I suppose your roles have evolved as well. Probably in the early days you were both doing everything and anything. Yeah. How's your split gone between the two of you in terms of responsibilities as the business has grown?
I mean, not only did we used to do anything and everything, we used to pretty much do everything together.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and we did, and it worked. It worked very well. And I guess a lot of it was because it was just the two of us to start with. So it was just natural. If you went out to a meeting, we would go together, because we often still go now in pairs. But all of a sudden it became apparent that we had all these staff, and we had too many staff for both of us to manage all of them. So that's when we had to start splitting it down. And then naturally the tasks become split down. And actually a very big learning curve was us handing stuff over to the staff and us not micromanaging it or doing it.
That was probably one of the hardest things, because it was our baby.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's the big taboo thing that no one wants to talk about, but COVID really did have a massive impact on us, because of the way we grew, and we had to be really, really focused on different things. So I'm an early morning person. Nikki's a late at night person. I'd be up early in the morning dealing with the payroll, making sure everything was on the system properly, the compliance side of it. Nick would be up till midnight dealing with extra bookings that were coming in. We couldn't both be doing that, otherwise we'd be at work all day.
Yeah.
You know, so we had to start splitting the tasks into different bits and managing different teams. We always link up together, but there's not enough hours in the day for us to both be doing the shared, all the tasks shared. It's physically impossible.
Is it useful that you've gone through a period where you've both done everything? So, like, for example, if one of you needs to step away for whatever reason, would the other one be able to kind of... Because I guess, I suppose I'm thinking you're entirely right that you both need to be doing different things, but has it helped you that you both know everything as well?
It did, and it still does. However, now we've got 15 people in the office. And we payroll like 400 drivers, so it's quite a big operation. So as it's gone, we've grown very slowly and very steadily, and I think that's really helped in terms of the finance and the solid structure that we've got. But yeah, in terms of that, I think now, even though we are capable of doing everything if we really needed to, we wouldn't feel the need to jump in anymore, because we've got a team to be able to do it. But yeah, as an overarching, if one of us is on holiday, the other one can manage those teams to make sure the work's done. And it definitely, I've said this a few times, when you start business, you have to be jack of all trades, master of none. Like, you have to be. You cannot be, I guess, precious about it. Even, remember when I built the cabinet? We went to IKEA, bought £9 chairs and bought a cabinet, and Em was you were probably doing payroll, and I was probably doing anything to avoid it, even though I could. So I decided I was going to make this cabinet, and I stepped back all proud, and Emily went, are the handles supposed to be at the bottom? So the doors were on upside down. And then we just left it like that. We left it like that. So we were very good at getting our hands dirty. And I think people that go into business a little bit older, that have worked in a business and had a role, maybe don't understand that or don't like to do that. So yeah, definitely it's helped having that mentality. And then when you start employing people, or you start working with people, you're very much like, we need you, but you're not the be all and end all, so they don't always have you over a barrel. And then you have to learn to let go.
Oh yeah, I mean, when we first started, I did all our IT stuff. So I mean, I'd network the computers. It was such a waste of time, because it would take me probably 3 times the amount of time it would have taken anyone that has any computer knowledge. I'd be Googling, I'd be trying to work it out. Nick's not IT friendly, should we say. I'm not great at IT, but it was, for us, it was like, oh, we can't possibly afford to get someone to come out and do it. So I'll just work out how to do it. I mean, Nikki's given the computer several viruses. But eventually we did think, we were like, okay, that's where it was like, no, we need to start outsourcing this to people that actually know how to do it, because the value of me crawling around on the floor trying to because, you know, it was all plugged in then. It wasn't, you know, you couldn't network like via Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or any of those. It was all wired. I'd be crawling around on the floor for hours, and actually the worth of me doing that as opposed to paying someone to come and do that is much more worthwhile getting an expert in.
No,
and that's
absolutely.
where we learn outsourcing certain things was actually
the way forward.
Yeah. And I think it's true as well, going back to what you were saying before about having people who work for you. I think it's quite a tough thing in a business to have the idea that the business is yours, that you've created it. You've gone through, like for you guys, gone through this kind of period where you essentially had to buy it out of somebody else's hands and it's your business. Sort of recognizing that actually when you employ people, they don't feel the same way about your business, and actually nor should they, because it's different for them. And I think having that kind of, I suppose, perspective about how you want to be as an employer, but then what you're expecting from your employees when it isn't their business.
No, and if if they were that good and that passionate about running a business, they'd want to run their own business. So they'd be different. They wouldn't actually be employees. They'd be waiting for the next chapter to start for them, because they'd be learning that stuff ready to go, like we did.
Yes.
Actually, ultimately, we always said we really, really wanted shares in the last company we worked for together. We wanted to stay there. We really loved working there. But ultimately, if they'd given us 5% shares, that probably wouldn't have been what we truly wanted, because actually what we really wanted.
It would have been a couple of years satisfaction, and then we would have wanted more.
We really probably wanted to run a business, because we probably always had that about ourselves. We've probably always been unemployable.
Yeah.
You know, we needed to work for ourselves because we used to drive people insane when we worked for them. And actually having 5% shares would never have really kept us. It would have kept us for a few extra years. And then we'd have been like, this is what we wanted.
Yeah.
So it then caused even more bother, because we'd have had to get out of that situation. So yeah, I think unfortunately we're always striving sometimes and looking for something that probably isn't there.
It's a bit cliche, but when you look back, it's all the hard times were always the right decisions and made it work in the long run.
Yeah.
You know, even big things like losing. We lost a big client because they whittled down a panel, so they were only using large agencies that would indemnify against certain things, and because we weren't national, we had no chance of getting onto this panel. And at one point, that was 60% of our business. We kind of saw it coming, so we managed to whittle it down to about 40%. And then when it finally went out of our control, we were like, okay, well, we saw it coming, so we've done the damage limitation on it. And then it made us just look at the ethos of we need a massive client spread for lots of different reasons, but mainly for the safety of finance and for the safety of just not having all your eggs in one basket. So yeah, it felt awful, but it taught us a great lesson.
Yeah, no, I've been in that position as well. You know, we had quite a big client, and they got acquired by another business, and you know, literally overnight that just went, and it was quite a big thing to swallow. So yeah, no, I've been there as well. What would you say is the sort of biggest challenge that you guys have had? I mean, I know we've been through different economic things over the last decade or so, but what's really been the time where you thought, this is tough?
Took some bad tax advice and had to pay the tax man some money back. There's definitely things people don't talk about. It was, long story short, it was a DOTA scheme, which is a disclosed
Tax avoidance.
Yeah. And we took some advice from the same accountant that helped us move away from our business partners. And he said, you know, worst case scenario, you'll have to pay some corporation tax on it on the way you've taken it out. And we were like, right, okay. And again, we were a bit naive because we listened to him probably rather than ask a lot of questions.
And we trusted him because he'd kind of got us, he'd helped us so much by that point. We really did think, we just do what he says.
And then the law changed after it. So rather than them coming and saying, right, we're going to dispute this, let's get a resolution, they basically came and said, right, you owe us this, and then it'll go into dispute after, but you've got to pay up front. And it was, it was a lot of money. It was a lot of money in one go. So that was, we were a little bit like, okay, we did it when we bought the business out, but the money was like, what was it, 5 times, 6 times as much?
Yeah, and what was really insane about it is it was designed so that if people were taking large amounts of money out of a business and putting it on a house and then getting the profit out of the house, that kind of thing, that they were attacking those people. But the reality is, it took Nikki and I 5 years to take that amount of money out of the business because we didn't have that money. But he was just like, oh, it'd be better for you in this respect and everything else. It's like you going 30 miles an hour and then them changing the speed limit to 20 miles an hour and saying, everyone that's gone through that speed limit
couple of months
in the last 3 years, we're going to give you speeding tickets. There's nothing you can do about it. We're going to charge you for it, and then you can take us to court later about it and disagree.
That was horrendous.
That
time was horrendous. And funnily enough, it was a bad decision. I don't think it was bad advice at the time. Like you said, something changed. And was it a bad decision? Who knows? It made us not risk anything else in the future.
Oh, it made us very insular. We were literally, everyone would be like, do this. No. Yeah, but no, we're not doing it. We wouldn't even listen.
It was the hardest time because at that point we were probably 6-7 years in. We just started to get a bit of flow, find our feet, and then this just completely rocked us because we thought that revenue were going to come in and take all of the money out of the business and shut us down.
Yeah. Wow.
It was not
a
lot of sleepless nights, I should think.
It was horrible.
Yeah.
And it felt like it was also never ending because, you know, we went up we actually had meetings at HMRC. We went and had meetings there and sat down with them. We were like, please explain to us. We need to get to the bottom of this. We need to get around it. We've paid all this money. How can you possibly tax us this exactly the same amount of money as what we've taken out? Because that's what they wanted us to pay back. We were like, but that's 100% tax. It was insane, wasn't it? And we literally went up there and were like, please explain how this works. And with the poor guys, they're obviously just officers. It's not their decision or anything else. And he was like, yeah, but blah, blah, blah. We were like, imagine if someone sent you a letter saying you owed them that much money. He was like, yeah, I've just taken a mortgage out. And we were like, yes, you get a house at the end of that. Nothing at the end of this. It was awful.
And it is frustrating because it was, like we said, it was from the advice came from an accountant. And he told us worst case scenario, and actually worst case scenario that he told us was probably about 20% of actually the scenario that happened.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Yeah. So then most of the other problems really that we say would be very stressful would come from money more than anything else.
Yeah.
Just because you've got huge responsibility when you've got staff, you've got people out on the road, you've got your own like houses.
Yeah, and it's difficult because we, like Nikki said, we're paying people and we pay them weekly. Some of our customers don't pay us for 30 to 60 days. So you're cash rolling their business as such because we're funding it.
Yeah.
We're paying, they take X amount of time to pay us. And probably our worst ones are when people have then overtraded and then been unable to pay us, whether it be that they've then had to create a payment plan to manage to get back to a manageable situation, or whether it be that they've gone bust on us. We've had numerous of those over the years.
Yes, even though we're a small business, in COVID when it peaked, we were owed 2.5 million. Like every day when we get up in the morning, that's how much we were due in. And I can remember once the VAT man had a 500 grand VAT bill.
Yeah.
And we were like, we can't pay this in one go because the customers are trading so much that the bank are taking some of their funding away. And it just happens, like when you've got momentum and you're working really hard to fulfill the requirements, then unfortunately the finance bit, which should always be probably at the top of the list, gets forgotten about. And then the 3 months pass. Yeah. And I rang the VAT office and I said, look, we're going to have to pay you 3 months again. It was like history repeating itself.
Yeah.
And they went, you need to put a case forward. I was like, the case is we can't pay it. I'll pay it in 3 months. And they said, okay, we'll put something in writing. We didn't hear from them. But that's experience. We're like, we're going to do what we say we'll do, and we know that they'll probably
that's because before we've been like, can we? And they obviously say no. We're like, well, that's it. That's all we can do. I mean, for us, it was incredibly harsh because the bank were literally just like, no, that's it. And we were like, but we're incredibly busy, and they were looking at people furloughing and everyone looking at completely different situations. We're like, the business is booming with the busiest we have ever been. The haulage industry is booming at the moment. And you're putting restrictions on us based upon furlough and, the COVID loans and everything else. And we're like, we've not taken any of those. So you're looking at our credit based upon the fact that we're still trading and we've not taken anything because people have taken stuff. That was really hard because we were sort of fighting between a rock and a hard place. And we did eventually change banks because we just received absolutely no support. We were like, we can't pay our tax bill. Like, we actually can't pay that. And they were like, there's nothing we can do. We're like, you're actually... So you're stunting us trading. Yeah,
definitely most stressful times are the money because that's the thing that can stop the business.
Yeah.
Everything else you can sort of manage or deal with, but that can just shut you down. You don't have the cash flow.
And absolutely, as you say, because you've got so many people on payroll, they're expecting to be paid every week. They're not going to come in if they're not paid. You've got your own staff. They're not going to come in if they're not getting paid. That kind of cash flow bit must be crucial.
Yeah, and it only needs to happen once before you get a bad reputation. If for some reason we didn't pay all our staff on Friday, that would be around the industry like wildfire.
Oh, absolutely.
And, all the drivers and people that trust us now, that trust is gone. When we're busy and we need them, they wouldn't want to work for us because there's a risk of not getting paid.
What advice would you give to someone starting a business now?
Someone asked us that recently. I was like, don't do it. But I'd probably say now, do something you love, have a really good support network behind you. And be prepared that it's not easy. You're going to have sleepless nights. It isn't, people say to us, don't they? Well, you go on holiday whenever you could go on holiday. Why don't you just go on holiday? And we're like, because we run a business. You can't just go on holiday. And a small business at that. If we're not there, no one's doing our jobs while we're not there because that's not how this works. So, just be prepared that you're going to work hard. You're going to have sleepless nights. And
don't be greedy.
Yeah.
Like, really don't be greedy. I think a lot of people in business are quite ego-driven. We come across it, don't we?
A lot,
And
yeah.
like I said, going back to getting your hands dirty at the beginning, when you start a business, it's not glamorous. It's not glamorous now, which is good because we're not glamorous. Yeah, it's not glamorous. I think for me personally, my advice would be go into business with somebody else. The fact that we have had each other to bounce off, to support, to really understand each other, that it's almost like you've just always had another backbone, somebody there holding you up. And that's not in terms of sort of holding hands and going sitting in front of people. I think it's just really understanding that you're in it together and making those decisions. You don't really feel like it's all on your shoulders. But again, that goes back to the greed. Like, we were never greedy enough to want to do it ourselves.
And we were always because of the bad tax advice we talked about, we've always been really scared of taking too much out of the business and those sort of things. So we have never been greedy. We've always wanted to invest back in driver uniform, a good office for our staff, good equipment for our staff. We've never been like, oh, we'll just take it all out and run away with it. You really do have to be in a position where you are willing to drive around in the rubbish car to do those things if those things happen.
Yeah. And don't listen. You've got to listen to other advice and take a lot of different people's advice, but you have to make your own path. You can't just look because this business has done it this way that you're able to do it that way. You really, if you understand your business from the beginning, you're the one that knows how to look after it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, like, one thing I was saying in the last episode we did for season 1 was also around that kind of thing, is that I think it's always worth remembering that most of the rules or the advice that someone's going to give you, it's all made up.
It is.
Like,
everyone's faking it till they make it.
Absolutely. And to be in a position where, like you say, you can take good advice, take it on board, but you're the one that knows what really happens in your business and whether or not it suits your business.
Yeah. A lot of people with the finance will just say, if you're not been paid by somebody, just stop supplying them. And we're like, but the bigger picture is there's so much competition that will just go in. They might not be as good and pick that up, that we'd probably get pushed to the bottom of the queue anyway. So we have to really manage a lot of the money ourselves, don't we, and make those strong decisions. Equally, there's a lot of people that will be like, well, just supply on that rate because you're making something's better than nothing. Well, actually, it's not. We can see how much work that goes into. So actually, you are then in a deficit if you're just making a small margin.
So obviously, you've got each other's back. You've been in business a long time together. What do you admire most about each other as business partners?
I'd say Nikki's really empathetic. She's caring and she's kind and she's considerate. Probably a little bit more so than... a lot more so than I am. Nick can always see the best in people, and that does make me quite often, I'm quite cut and that, like, I'm done, that's it. Whereas Nikki will kind of work through that a little bit more, so it does make me more, it makes me a nicer person, I would say. And I think Nikki's really, really strong, and that's a really good quality to have. But you're also tenacious, and I love that about you.
Yeah,
you're determined.
I think those are very similar qualities, even though we're very, very different. The tenacity and the determination. But Em is very, very organised and will just get stuff done, like way more than me. I'm a little bit sort of flighty with things. I'm not so organised in terms of timekeeping, and Emily really is. So Em's got a really good structure, but she's also brilliant with all of our staff. Like she's a little bit sort of, I don't say harsher, but I can see things from a lot of different point of views, but it does help then sometimes Em's point of view will come in and it'll be a little bit more like, well, actually it's not about everybody else all the time, it's the business. Whereas I might make the business kind of take a back seat to look after somebody else, and actually it's ultimately a business. We work for the business, and the business needs to run properly to look after everybody. So that works very well.
Yeah, no, it sounds like you meet in the middle with a lot of stuff.
And just personality, like, I call her Coops. My surname's Tilly and Emily's Coops, so quite often we're called Tilly and Coops. And she just makes me laugh a lot, an awful lot. Like, we laugh every day.
Yeah, we do. And that's one of the nicest things, because actually in business, it can be hard. But ultimately, I mean, I've got quite a sadistic sense of humour, so Nikki can come out with like, oh my God, this has just happened. I'm like... with the banter in the background. I won't tell you what I said this morning because it's probably not repeatable for a podcast.
No.
You've got to enjoy the journey as well, and you know, to be in it together, you've got to, you know, work together. You've got to have fun. You know, and that's really important. But I'm sure you must have had some disagreements along the way as well. Have you ever had a big falling out, or you know?
But few.
Yeah, but they're funny because they'll build up and they'll build up and they'll build up. It'll be like a bit, and then one of us will storm out or go quiet. We both won't talk for like an hour or so, and it's like, want a cup of tea?
And everybody else is just like,
they like
get me out of here.
Yeah.
But I'd say it's only happened absolute maximum 5-6 times.
Yeah, and they are, I would say they're normally a build-up of a load of stressful situations, not even necessarily stuff that we're annoyed with each other about. It's just other stuff going on, and we'll kind of get on each other's wick, and then one of us will just, and then the other one will go back. Then it kind of just ends, doesn't it? It's a bit of back and forth. Everyone goes...
So there's been no sort of major disagreements where maybe you've wanted to go in one direction, you've wanted to go in another, and you've sort of butted heads a little bit.
Not major.
Oh God, no! And actually, this is probably one thing that, touch wood, we've been really successful about. We've always been aware that we've got quite strong personalities, and if one of us really, really wants something, unless the other one can see an absolutely horrendous reason why that wouldn't work, it's a bit like, do you know what? If she's really that excited and passionate about that, I'm not really that bothered. Or if it's something we're both bothered about, then we meet in the middle because we know that neither of us would be satisfied.
Yeah,
if
we would
went
never
with the other
keep
opinion.
pulling.
No. I mean, we recently had someone offer to be a non-executive shareholder for us. And I mean, we've got this far managing to do it. And one of the things was, well, you know, if you have a moment where one of you, you know, where you're struggling to make a decision, I can be the other person. I mean, that would be horrendous for us.
We were both like, that is the worst selling point, sorry. You're not.
Yeah, because actually...
that would cause so many problems.
It would cause so many problems because we have to come to a compromise, because neither of us would be happy if we didn't come to a compromise. So I think that's probably where we're both very good. And it's like, no, actually, we're determined that we need to come to a solution because we both care equally about that point. Whereas, you know, it could be something else where Nikki's really excited about a pen that I really don't care. It's not a pen, but I'm just trying to use an example.
Big decision.
You know, it could be something like that. And it's like, do you know what? I actually really don't care that much about said pen. Yeah. If you really like that pen, go with that pen. You know, there's no point having a back and forth about it. Yeah. Because it's so irrelevant. I mean, it really is. Yeah. That's not worth worrying.
So a lot of the big stuff we're very aligned on, and so, it works really well.
Yeah. So how do you guys, you know, motivate each other during sort of challenging times and support each other? Because we've had lots of those recently, and you've talked about some of them as well. But
I think the challenging times probably motivate us.
Yeah, and I also think we both have a bit of an element. One of us will lose the plot about it, so the other one then has to stay calm.
Absolutely, and that happens. Yeah. That's happened with our personal life as well as our business
definitely.
Life. Because you know, we've been through a lot together in 16 years, and we've had to carry the can for each other in different times. Yeah. And one person's had to really step up with the business because they've known what the other one's going through, and vice versa. And that's been a very, very understanding and level partnership. But yeah, I'd say that in a difficult time, we naturally both just take that as ammunition to step up and get on with it.
Yeah. Knuckle down.
Yeah. We would never sit there and mope around and feel sorry for ourselves because we know that wouldn't be having any positive effect.
No. I mean, I would literally banter Nikki out of it until she wanted to kill me.
Yeah. I mean, we might have a night in the kitchen and get absolutely smashed. You know, with each other if we were going through a really, really tough time. But otherwise, I think we're very lucky. We're not depressed, sit back, feel bad.
We're quite, we're like, right, how are we going to deal with this? Let's just move forwards. There's no point dwelling.
And you're obviously best friends, right? Yeah. And does business and friendship ever get blurred in any way? Do you just talk about work when you're together outside of work? You know, are there boundaries there around things?
We can do. Sometimes I suspect we bore the shit out of everyone around us because we'll go off on one about work and it'll be like, blah, 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 and we'll just keep going. Other times it won't even come up in conversation. It really depends where we are, what's going on with the business and what we're doing. If we've got something on our minds and one of us can't let it go, then it probably inevitably keeps coming up in the conversation because we're struggling to move forward from it because it's on our minds. But yeah, no, we're pretty good. It doesn't blur a light. I mean, we've travelled to a lot of places over the world together and had many holidays together with friends. many different outings. We've got a couple of shared friendship groups. So yeah, sometimes
A
there's
lot of our friends, I think, are quite interested by the business though, and kind of quite proud of the dynamic that we have, considering we run a business together. Yeah, I think that it sort of intrigues people a little bit rather than bores them. It might be, I know sometimes my mum will be, we've spent a lot of time with my family and Emma's family over the years, and sometimes mum will be like, oh my God, you two, take a breath, you're making me anxious, because we'll be on sunbeds on a beach in Portugal having this rabbit where one of us has checked an email or one of us had to make a phone call. That's the only thing. When we're both out of the business and we're on holiday together, we do have to have a touch point, so we can't forget about it altogether.
It sounds like you've got the team in place that you know you can go away together and it gets dealt with.
We have got a good team. We've worked really, really hard, and they've worked really, really hard, and they've really stepped up in the last couple of years.
Yeah. So you kind of touched on it already, but obviously work-life balance is a big thing anyway, but particularly when you're running a small business. Are there things that you particularly do to balance work and life, or is it all a bit of a mishmash?
When we first started, and in this business it's 24/7, so the phones, when we leave the office, they get diverted to the on-call and the calls are taken all through the night. So it wasn't until probably 2019, 20 that we actually relinquished being part of that on-call rota. So we would still take the phones. When we first started, we were 24/7 between the two of us. So it was incredibly intensive, work intensive. You just physically couldn't switch off because you had the driver plan, the customers and the phones. We did more drivers do Glastonbury right at the beginning, where we hired a camper van on the business, and we thought that was great. You know, we always saw the good in things. We're like, right, we can have the camper van on the business because we have to take the phones.
And we worked the whole weekend, but enjoyed it. And then, so now actually, then we went to just backing up. So we're always available, one of two of us, if there's a big issue. But we don't take the phones anymore. So I think since that, the work-life balance has completely changed. Also, in terms of the business being 24/7, we have never been stuck in the office Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. If we have appointments, we work around each other. I don't start early. Em's daughter had a horse at one point, so you'd go out every afternoon, and it's just work. We just worked with each other. Yeah, we've always been able to do that.
Yeah.
And, you know, both of us really like exercise, and I think that probably is what keeps us sane. If we didn't exercise, we'd probably be absolutely bonkers.
So how do you unwind after a hectic day, both of you? You mentioned exercise and fitness. Is that running, gym, things like that?
I run and I do strength training. And Nick likes yoga as well, don't you?
I dabble with the strength training. I don't particularly enjoy it. I know it's good for me, and we've got a good friendship group at the gym. We actually go to the same gym that Em's been to for a long time, and I joined a little bit later. But I do a lot of yoga. And about 5-6 years ago, I had this massive pang of imposter syndrome on running a business, and was like, oh, what if it all goes wrong? What will I do? So I went and trained to be a yoga teacher. But actually, a lot of that was just, I think, the joy of learning something different to get your head out of the business. And probably the same with what you've picked up your fitness, haven't you, over the years as well?
Yeah, definitely. You've got to, I think you have to have something that you switch off, and it really does make you switch off. You can't go for a run and be on your work emails or lifting weights in the gym and be on your work emails doing so. I mean, I was squatting, checking my emails. The coach just laughed at me. She was like, well, that's an interesting weight you've picked up on the phone. I was like, I know, but I haven't gone through my emails yet because I woke up late. So I'm squatting. But, you have to have the balance. And I think exercise is actually really, really great for you because it's good endorphins and it makes you feel good, and you do switch off. If I don't exercise, I'm horrendous.
It just allows you to be more focused at work as well. When you start the day with exercise, or if you've had a stressful day and you finish the day with exercise, it just allows you to have,
it's like
you
an
said,
eraser, isn't
it? Just and you're just focused on what you're doing, and just you get to forget about work temporarily.
The worse work is stressful wise, the more I tend to exercise. Because I'm like, just calm down and sleep better. I sleep better if I exercise. If I don't, then I don't sleep. And that's always kind of been something that you and I have drifted in and out of doing particularly badly. When it's stressful, we don't sleep because you can't switch off, can you? It's just constantly on your mind. And that, I think that's definitely something no one tells you when you set up your own business. be prepared to have a lot of sleepless nights.
Yeah, I mean, we go through the acupuncture, the Reiki, all of that holistic stuff we're really into as well.
Yeah, a bit of meditation.
And we will always make time for that. Like, we've seen plenty of people in business that say, well, I haven't got time to do that. And if we didn't make time for those things, it would cause problems. It's a bit like if you haven't got time to take a break, you certainly haven't got time to be ill. You know, so
you've got time to watch, binge watch a series on Netflix, but you haven't got time to exercise or do the things that you need to do. So you definitely get the benefits from doing that and in your day to day. So no, that's
and
great.
It's not just switching off as well. I think it's also like having space for your brain to just process things sometimes as well. Like if you've got a bigger or overarching problem or challenge or project or whatever it is, just I find having space where I'm out of the business or out of whatever I'm working on, suddenly I'll be like, oh, okay, now I've solved the problem. Like that's all. So I think as well that really helps having that kind of space to just see everything in a kind of bigger picture way as well.
Yeah, I get that a lot when I'm driving. If I'm driving somewhere for longer than 40 minutes, I'm suddenly like, I'll get to about 40 minutes. It's a bit of a standard joke with some of my friends because my stress levels go down when I drive. I don't know what on earth I do. They literally they drop from like here to here, and my body battery starts going up. It's a bit weird. But after about 40 minutes, I start getting all these ideas.
Plugging yourself in when you get in the car.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Phone charger.
But yeah, after about 40 minutes, it's like that's enough for me to have like recovered brain-wise, and I suddenly start being like, oh, I haven't done this, or what if we did this with this, and all these ideas then start popping in. But it's because I've switched off.
Yeah. No,
and actually, we spend a lot of time voice messaging each other. I do, especially at the weekend.
Yeah.
Like if I've been to yoga and then I'm walking the dog, I'm like, Saturday thoughts, and I can hit him with a load of stuff. And vice versa when you're not at work.
Yeah.
Sharing that's really nice to be able to do as well. Just getting it out there, and whether you respond and listen to it or whatever, but just for you, being able to just get that out there.
Yeah, it'll often come with a message, just notes.
And actually, the stresses, if something happens and it is stressful, we can bounce that off each other. So it does make a huge difference having that.
Yeah. So to finish up, one of the things that we discovered in the first season of the podcast is that Ben really likes getting questions from ChatGPT. So he's been asking ChatGPT some funny questions to finish up our podcast. So Ben, do you want to ask some kind of quick fire fun questions to finish us off?
Yeah. So what's the most unexpected or hilarious moment you've experienced while running your business?
Do you know what's funny? Probably isn't going to be funny to anyone else. Was when we had an office and we had a driver come in, because they come in quite a lot. So when we were smaller, that we'd have time for them just to sit around with us as well and have a cuppa. And one day a driver came in that we'd worked for a long time, Nick, he's lovely. And he went to leave and he'd come in to show us his new car. So we hung out the window, and as he walked out to it, the boot popped up, which we were like, okay, and he couldn't shut it. And he's dying, isn't he? And we referenced it the other day, and it's something so simple, but we were just howling out the window. This lovely new car, it was a soft top, wasn't it? Like a soft top Audi. And he just couldn't shut the boot, and we never let him live it down. So yeah, probably a lot of the funny times are with the drivers.
Yeah, definitely.
Driver once texted me saying, you probably think I'm only after your body. And I was like, all right, Phil. He's like, money, I meant money.
It wasn't called into HR the next time. Okay, if you could have a famous entrepreneur as a business mentor for a day, who would it be and why?
This is definitely a Nikki question because I don't pay attention to any of that, so I could absolutely not answer it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I like
Mr. Blobby.
I like a lot of those. So Emma read a lot of fiction, whereas I read a lot of autobiographies. Like Karen Brady, Sugar, all of the TV ones. Peter Jones, I find really intriguing because he's built it all and lost it all a couple of times. So his tenacity and I think probably him. If I could choose somebody, I had to pick somebody quite quickly. Or Karen Brady, because she's got a great story as well.
Do you watch Dragon's Den?
I do. I watch all of those.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. What's the quirkiest customer request you've ever had?
Definitely couldn't put that on camera.
That's a great answer. Anything you can think of that we can put on camera?
Strangest thing that you've been asked of from one of your clients?
The strangest... I actually can't think of anything strange. The minute I leave here, I'm going to think of 7 strange things that I've been asked.
Do you know what just reminded me of, though? But funny again. And I screenshotted that thing and sent it to Gary at Travis. And it had Vaseline in the background. And he rang, didn't he? And was like, what has Nikki been Googling? And I must have screenshot something on an email. And my Google was open in the background. And I was probably Googling those little Vaseline tins. But he's like, why are you Googling Vaseline? But in terms of requests.
Yeah. Sure. No, I don't think we've had any strange requests. I mean, people ring us and ask for strange things on a daily basis. Yeah. So, yeah, no, I don't think we've had any massively weird requests.
No, only can you charge us less?
Feedback. Have you had any quirky feedback? Google reviews, Trustpilot reviews.
I hate our Google reviews because you can't verify them.
Yeah.
And you can't change them if someone's written something that's not factually correct. And I'm not a massive fan of Google reviews for that reason.
Yeah.
You know, you'll have someone say, well, they've not paid me. And it's like, well, no, we paid you a week late because we asked you to confirm what you've been doing because the customer asked us. And you wouldn't tell us. And then they write this horrendous review about you, or they say, I think one of our favourite ones, don't let them down because they won't work you anymore.
We're like, that's the best review we've ever had. We show it to our customers. Yeah. We don't keep persevering with the ones that can let us down.
But yeah, no, I feel that it's really hard for a small business because anyone can write anything. And there is absolutely no way of verifying whether it's factually correct.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think...
And we've had some, like... I suppose in terms of the drivers, we've had a customer called not so long ago and he went, Nikki, I said, yeah. He went, can you tell your driver to take the GoPro off of his helmet and delete all the footage? And I'm like, what? He's like, just do it. I'm like, okay, give me a second. And this is a big business. They run 500 trucks. I ring the driver. He says, yes, I'm making a show for YouTube, a day in the life. I'm like, okay, I understand what you're doing, but you can't just do that in one of our customers. And that was we just found it hilarious in the office.
It's so random.
And he was so innocent with it, wasn't he?
Yeah.
There's a lot of motorway driving on his footage.
He was going in and out of quarries, so he wanted to sort of really give give that side of things.
It was so innocent.
Yeah.
But obviously, you're recording people at work.
Yeah.
Their customers. You're in our customer. There's a lot of no-nos in that. But
we've had some episodes with drivers that have been quite entertaining, sometimes not very nice, that we've had to deal with. I mean, can you remember the time we had a customer saying to us, we think your driver's cutting all the trackers in the trucks? And we're like, what? And about 9 trucks all of a sudden had lost their tracking devices. So we speak to this driver. He's like, no, not doing anything wrong. And they come back to us with the evidence. They're like, look, it's whittled down to him. Anyway, we eventually managed to get him in the office. And he was like, yeah, it was me. We're like, what on earth have you done that for? He said, they weren't very nice to me.
So I didn't want them to be able to see where I was because I didn't think they had the right, because they were being
sabotaged about 80 grand's worth of tracking
just stop going in there. Just say you don't want to work there anymore.
Yeah.
No one's forcing you to go in there. It's quite bizarre.
A lot of our oh my god stories are sometimes what the workforce have gone out and done.
Okay, and just to finish off then, if your business had a theme song, what would it be and why?
We have one.
You have one?
Oh,
Two
that's
now because
amazing.
Jade introduced a new one.
Okay.
And I couldn't miss that. We have Queen, Another One Bites the Dust.
What, a driver bites the dust?
Can be used in lots of
It
different...
can be used in a lot of different scenarios.
Yeah.
Nikki's very empathetic. Sometimes, eventually, we get to the point where it's lovely to play that song.
Yeah.
And Jade introduced the final countdown the other day.
Oh, okay.
Excellent.
Yeah.
This works, across the board with
Many
lots
different
of
things.
different
Yeah.
things.
But
Yeah.
it's quite funny.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Oh, great. I'm
Good
surprised.
choices.
Yeah, good choices. Very good choices. Very empowering as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you both so much for joining us. It's been an awesome conversation. It's really interesting to hear all about your business.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Sorry that we couldn't get through all the questions because Nikki and I talked that much.
Oh no, you've met Ben. Like we have the other Ben tucked around the corner. Like you've met him, right? Like
That's
all
why
of
you
our
wouldn't
other
let him in.
episodes. Yeah,
makes sense now.
I wondered why Ben said he'd step out of this one, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
Yeah.
no, really appreciate you guys taking time out of your busy
thank
days
you.
and joining us today.
Thank
Great
you.
to talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Living the Small Business Life. This is the start of season 2. So obviously we have an entire other season out there, which you can watch on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. So check it out.